Now, we are joined this morning by Fiona Songa from the Telecommunication Service Providers of Kenya. And just right off the bat, Fiona, for some of us who are not internet tech savvy, perhaps are you able to give us the role of TESPOC in Kenya?
TESPOC is pretty much the Telecommunication Service Providers Association of Kenya that was started way back in 1999. Initially, the role of TESPOC was to get the ISPs to get good services from the incumbent. Then that was Telkom Kenya. And over time, that role has evolved. TESPOC began to offer value-add services such as hosting common infrastructure, such as the Kenya Internet Exchange Point. TESPOC facilitated the establishment of the .ke, that's the country code top-level domain name.
Yeah.
TESPOC has also been involved in policy development. We engage a lot with the Ministry of ICT or Ministry of Communication, depending on what the government of the day decides to call it.
Yeah.
We also interact a lot with the Communications Commission of Kenya on regulations to ensure that the environment created by both policy and regulations is conducive for a Kenyan investor within the ICT sector. In a nutshell, that's what we do. Over the years, we have introduced additional services such as network monitoring. We do have from 2009 a very robust network monitoring platform that is a case study for the African continent.
Yeah. But just given the hype that has been there about internet and all these matters to do with using internet in Kenya, do you feel like the internet penetration has reached a level where the internet service providers are happy with, or are they looking to even do more to enable its penetration?
We still have a lot of work to do.
Yep.
There is a lot of unserved areas in terms of internet penetration, because you'll realize most of the service providers have been able to get at least to the main towns. We know that there are some counties that are yet to be served with internet connectivity, especially on fiber. They may get it via other technologies such as the mobile dongas and wireless, but at the end of the day, there is quite a lot of work that needs to be done to ensure that there is robust internet connectivity into the entire country. We do have a lot of unserved areas that the service providers and the regulator are working together to meet.
What are some of the reasons why perhaps internet service providers would shy away from taking this fiber infrastructure into certain areas? Does it have to do with the cost of laying the infrastructure, or does it boil down again to how they're able to price this service when they eventually get it there?
The ability for a service provider to be able to go into an area is largely driven by the availability of customers in that area.
Yeah.
For example, if you have a lot of tomatoes and you want to sell tomatoes, you don't take tomatoes to where people do not appreciate the tomatoes.
Yeah.
You don't take fish to people who don't eat fish. You take your product to people who need the product and appreciate the product. That is how every business person thinks.
Yeah.
I identify a market and I go to serve the market. Part of the reason why a lot of areas are underserved is because the population is either too low, or the business opportunities within that environment, business level on over the internet, is so low that it becomes, so to say, allow me to use the word, economically unviable
yes,
for my members to go into those areas. So in such cases, we are working together with the government through the Communications Commission of Kenya. We have a universal access fund that has been established where operators are putting in money into a kitty, and that fund, we hope, is going to help the same operators roll out into the underserved areas, especially where it is economically unviable.
Yeah. Perhaps one of the biggest concerns for people who appreciate the internet more than others has had to do with pricing. Over the years, we've had that the ISPs are still trying to recoup their investments, especially when it comes to fiber. But how long do you foresee before you ISPs actually bring internet prices to a certain level where I think it's able to be taken up by more people in Kenya?
I think Kenya is one of the countries in the region that has the lowest internet costs. If you look around, a lot has happened since the landing of the submarine cables in 2009. We have seen that the service providers, if you look at your service provider, you had internet, say, prior to 2009, either your bandwidth has increased or the value-add services you're getting along with that internet connectivity are more. Why? Because the cost of the internet connectivity bandwidth has really come down. And part of the reasons it has come down is that for starters, we have the Internet Exchange Point, which is pretty much the aggregation point where all the internet traffic for the country is managed and exchanged and resolved, and then routed to where it's supposed to go to. And so what happens is that by operators connecting to the exchange point, the cost of the internet connectivity is brought even lower. Yeah. So we've seen from 2009 to date a reduction in the cost of 1 MB from about $70 to as low as, it's now ranging to as low as 10 MB to $10 to $15 for an MB of internet bandwidth, depending on your service provider and what else they're bundling into it. Yeah. And so you find the cost is really come down. When we compare to the more developed countries within the sector, such as South Africa, their cost of internet is still very high. So I think our operators are doing more, and then the exchange point has done a lot to save on the costs. A study was done by the Internet Society in 2011, and it revealed that the exchange point saves operators a total of, on a monthly basis, $180,000 US. And this is money that goes back into rolling out additional infrastructure. So by connecting to the exchange point, the cost that is saved on a monthly basis has been significant enough to enable us reach out to more Kenyans. At the end of the day, our goal as the Internet Exchange Point is to ensure that every Kenyan has an enjoyable experience, because when traffic goes to the exchange point, the speeds are faster. We used to have speeds of 150 milliseconds just to get from one SP to another.
That is right? The days of satellite.
Yes, and then fiber came in, and we've seen as more fiber is rolled out, the speeds are getting lower, and as more members come into the exchange point, the speeds are going lower. And right now our speeds are between one operator to another about 10 milliseconds. If there is a problem and the traffic is routed through a different route, max 15 milliseconds. From here to London is about 35 milliseconds.
And for those of you perhaps who are not aware, that's very fast.
Yes, that is very fast internet traffic.
Right. Now, if I was just to ask, how has been the uptake of the exchange point? Because I know for a very long time, websites used to be hosted offshore, and I think as Tess spoke, your main agenda has been actually bringing more people to be on that Kenyan internet exchange point.
Actually, the exchange point thrives on local content more traffic coming into the exchange point. We've had scenarios when new applications were developed and we noticed traffic just spiking up. When the Kenya National Examination Council, for example, started issuing SMS and web access for results, every time results are announced, you notice the traffic shoots up by 3 to 4 times for 4 consecutive days. We've noticed when new SMS to web applications are introduced, traffic shoots up again quite significantly, 3 to 4 times. There are those things that Kenyans tend to do that are very interesting, like on Valentine's Day, from around the 14th to the 15th, the traffic is really, really high.
So it's short term, it's those peculiar habits of Kenyans loving certain situations to increase their activity, especially on the internet.
Yes.
All right. If I was just to ask you, there was this issue between TESPOC and the Communications Authority of Kenya, or CCK as you'd like to call it, when it came to the commercialization of .ke. Has that been resolved?
That is still pending. The process is not yet complete. However, between the Communications Commission of Kenya and TESPOC, we are very clear on how we want to progress. We want to ensure a smooth transition. We want to ensure stability of the .ke domain space. We want to ensure that at the end of the day, any Kenyan who wants to be recognized by their Kenyan identity, any Kenyan business that wants to be recognized by the Kenyan identity, is able to get their .ke space, because .ke is now offered to individuals. If you want Fiona.ke, you can get Fiona.ke, you can get TESPOC.ke, you can get whichever name you want .ke. Yeah.
Right, just winding up, in this age of now that we call ourselves a digital economy of sorts, should the internet become something of a basic utility in Kenya, and should it be treated as such?
The internet and internet services should be considered by the current government and future governments as critical infrastructure. Why? Because a lot of government services are going to run over this internet infrastructure that is owned by private sector investors. So there has to be a way to work together to ensure that we are able to keep the internet, first of all, stable, secure, and to ensure that it grows and reaches many Kenyans. And some of the ways we can do that is ensuring that we have the right infrastructure. For starters, we need secure data centers. We need, we've got only one globally recognized tiered data center in Kenya and in East Africa. the East African Data Center. We need more of those. We need to be able to ensure that Kenya Power and Lighting either gets competition to improve on its quality of service or is able to deliver sufficient power to keep our systems up, because ICT without power is like a car without fuel.
It's basically just a shell.
Yes. And so we need to be able to ensure that whatever government policies that come in force are supporting the relevant infrastructures we need to be able to get this done. I'd like to give a kudos to some of the governors of the counties who are giving way leave waivers to a number of operators to ensure that their counties are connected and have internet connectivity.
As an association, perhaps just finally, as an association, what are some of the targets that you have for internet penetration?
For us is to ensure that every county, for starters, has internet connectivity. Secondly is to ensure that the services we are able to receive in Nairobi, because Nairobi has more people on the internet and more individuals on the internet than the other countries, are accessible to people in other regions. Kenyans who are living in other parts of the country,
yes,
they should be able to get the same experience that we do.
Seamless connectivity.
Seamless connectivity, and the quality of service and access to services should be the same. One other goal we have is to get the media houses hosting locally, because that is significant content. There's a lot we've done in terms of localizing international content. We are hosting the likes of Google, and this gives us access to Google traffic for Kenyans like Americans would get it in the US. So it's faster, it's easier, and we have a whole lot of Google equipment we are hosting in one of our data centers that is serving the Kenyan citizens and the region.
Hopefully that will one day come to fruition.
Yes.
Fiona Songa, thank you very much for your time. So